In the past, I made a video about how the 2006 Cleveland Indians were the unluckiest team in MLB history because they had the highest run differential of any team to finish the season under 500. I said the word unlucky multiple times throughout that video, but that's a bit of a buzzword. Sure, they had a large run differential, but they still had a poor season mainly due to an inefficient bullpen among a couple of other reasons. Many might say they weren't necessarily unlucky, just underachieved. What about the actual unluckiest team in MLB history? By that, I mean, who was the team that had the highest run differential in a single season to miss the playoffs? The answer to that is rather simple to find, but I'm only going to look at teams from the divisional era of Major League Baseball, which is from 1969 to present day. I believe it's fair to only go back that far because, prior to 1969, only one team from each league made the playoffs, as there were no divisions until that season. The team with the highest run differential in a single season to miss the playoffs in the divisional era were the 2002 Boston Red Sox. Just how good were they, and how did they miss the playoffs? The team had an electrifying lineup, featuring a mirage of hitters such as Johnny Damon, Trot Nixon, Nomar Garciaparra, but most notably, left fielder Manny Ramirez. Ramirez was an insane threat in the lineup that year, slashing .349 with a .450 on base and .647 slugging for a 1.097 OPS and 184 adjusted OPS. He hit over 30 home runs and also had over 100 RBIs, and probably would have had a lot more of both, but missed over a month due to injury. As great as Manny Ramirez was, perhaps the best player on the team was this guy, Pedro Martinez. Martinez is a man that needs no introduction, but if you're unaware of just how incredible he was, he had perhaps the greatest 7-year stretch of any pitcher of all time. 2002 was during that time frame, a year where he went 20-4 with a 2.26 ERA, 202 adjusted ERA, 0.923 WHIP, 10.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, 6.5 WAR, and threw 199 in the third innings. He led the American League in all those categories except the last two. As amazing as Martinez was, his teammate and fellow star Derek Lowe was no slouch himself. Lowe went 21-8 with a 2.58 ERA, 177 adjusted ERA, 0.974 WHIP, 5.2 strikeouts per 9 innings, 7.2 WAR, and threw 219 and 2/3 innings. Martinez and Lowe placed second and third in the Cy Young voting in 2002 and were the undisputed best 1-2 punch in the American League, probably all of baseball. Only two other pitchers started at least 20 games for Boston that season, and they ranged from average to slightly below average. To make up for the lack of starting pitching depth, the Red Sox had a terrific bullpen. Closer Uget Urbina saved 40 games with an ERA at 3.00. Tim Wakefield, who started 15 games and pitched 30 in relief, recorded an ERA of 2.81 in over 160 innings pitched. He was another top-of-the-line pitcher Boston had. Other pitchers such as Casey Fossum, Willie Banks, and Alan Embry also had great seasons out of the bullpen. Perhaps the most notable part of the team was their new manager, Grady Little. This was the first season he ever managed a team in the big leagues. After missing the playoffs the previous 2 seasons, Boston was poised to compete. They had a team capable of winning the division and stayed competitive all year. Through the first third of the season, the Red Sox had the best record in all of MLB. Their 37-17 mark through the first 54 games was the best. This was no fluke either, as Boston also had the second best run differential of any team up until that point with a positive 91 mark. They scored the 4th most runs of any team in baseball and allowed the 4th fewest amount of runs. They were the only team in the top 4 in both categories. This demonstrates their dominance from both sides of the ball, amazing hitting, and lights out pitching. Despite the amazing performance so far, Boston wasn't running away with the competition. Both the Seattle Mariners and New York Yankees only stood 2 games back of the Red Sox for best record in the major leagues. It was a tight race to see which team would come out on top. After that amazing start to the season, Boston struggled. Following that 37-17 record, the Sox went 15-16 entering the All-Star break. This includes a 6-14 stretch to finish the month of June. Despite the struggles, Boston didn't fall too hard in the standings as they were 2 games behind the Yankees for best record in the American League. From 2 games up to 2 games back isn't ideal, but it's nothing catastrophic. There were still over 75 games left to play, plenty of opportunity to get back into first. Not only that, but Boston still held a playoff spot as they were a slim 1.5 games ahead of the Angels for the wild card. They also were better than the standings showed, as the Red Sox had the second best run differential in MLB entering the All-Star break. It certainly didn't appear the Red Sox were performing bad. On paper, they were still fantastic, and all signs pointed to them continuing their dominance. How did they perform in the second half of the season? Not well! Entering September, Boston had a record of 75-58. While that normally is a solid record, consider the fact that the Red Sox went from 19 games over 500 at the All-Star break to 17 games over entering September. That's right, they were playing under 500 baseball for the past 6 weeks. Ever since that 37-17 start, Boston has gone 38-41. They played half of the season under 500. They dropped from 2 games back in the division at the All-Star break to 8.5 games back entering September. They also went from 1.5 games in the lead for the wild card to 5 games back. Despite a terrific 18-11 record in September to finish the season with a 93-69 record, Boston missed the playoffs, finishing 10 games behind the Yankees for the division and 6 games behind the Angels for the wild card. They went from the best team in baseball to going home early. The Red Sox may have missed the playoffs, but they were still one of the best teams in baseball, and it's absolutely bizarre how they missed the postseason. As mentioned in the beginning of the video, their run differential is the record in the divisional era for a team to miss the playoffs. What was their run differential in 2002? 194. That 194 mark was the third best mark among all 30 teams in 2002, yet they finished with the 9th overall record. Imagine finishing in the top third among all teams in the league and not making the playoffs. To give an insight on the Red Sox season, if we exclude the shortened 2020 season, there are over 250 teams in the divisional era that had a lower run differential than 194 to make the playoffs. In fact, since 1969, the Red Sox 194 run differential is the 39th best mark in a single season, period. I would like to repeat that. The 2002 Red Sox have the 39th best run differential for any team in a full season from 1969 through the 2022 season. They were arguably a top 40 team over the past 50 plus years, yet didn't play October baseball. How does this happen? Well, if you watch my video about the 2006 Cleveland Indians, you would know that a team's overall record can be skewed from their run differential in one way or another. A team may have a high run differential but poor record if they win many blowouts, but also lose many close games. In 2002, the Red Sox won 34 games in which they won by 5 or more runs, yet also lost 23 one-run games. It's as simple as that. When they won, it was often by a lot, but when they lost, it was often by very little. Earlier in the video, I mentioned how the team struggled in the month of June. Well, in that month, Boston went 10-16 with a run differential of 8. 8 is nothing to brag about, but it's somewhat notable that a team finished 6 games under 500 while simultaneously scoring more runs than they allowed. 13 of those 16 losses were by 3 or fewer runs, while 4 of those 10 wins were by at least 5 runs. They were great from both sides of the field, but not when it mattered. This is why they had such a high run differential, yet finished with 7 wins fewer than expected from their Pythagorean record. I think it's also worth mentioning that another big reason why the Red Sox missed the playoffs was because the Anaheim Angels and Oakland Athletics had incredible second halves and shot up in the standings to overtake the Red Sox. What do you think? Are the 2002 Red Sox the greatest team, or one of the greatest teams to ever miss the playoffs? Certainly, I say so.